and this is Baby Ready. And I've been tossing around the idea about creating today's post for a little while now, because I wanted to spend some time letting myself sort of soak up the world we're living in. But I've been hearing and having more and more conversations about parents whose lives are completely disrupted right now. Things are turned upside down, and we're not parenting the way that we thought that we would be. We are leading by the world around us and letting the world around us and the pandemic we're living through work to dictate how we are parenting in a lot of circumstances. Whether that's small children that you've got, new babies, toddlers, like not yet school-aged children, or whether you've got tweens and teens and young adults, or whether your children are grown and are still living at home but are working outside the house. And in every instance, the dynamics of the circumstances and situations that we're living in right now are so vastly different than anything we ever could have wrapped our heads around. And that's huge for all of us. And it can be a huge struggle to try and figure out what pattern and path speaks best to us in light of the world that we're living in right now. So I want to spend some time just talking a little bit about what kind of a thought process did you have before your children were even born? Where are you now, and how do you see things unfolding in the future? Because we assume that life is going to get back to normal sometime soon. We hope. So let's have that conversation. What kind of a parent were you thinking you were going to be? I'm going to tell you that I think one of my biggest struggles when my kids were really little, especially my eldest, because they're first, right? They are your first foray into parenting somebody and looking after someone who has the opportunity to build and develop a personality of their own and figure things out for themselves. But it's your first big step away from your own parents for a lot of people. And that was a struggle for me. I made some decisions that were very different than the decisions my own parents made. And that isn't to say that my parents were making the wrong decisions. My parents made the decisions that worked best for them at the time that they were having children. But on top of that, they were making decisions based on how things felt for them and worked for them and the information that they had at the time. My mom didn't breastfeed. It wasn't a judgment call. It's just not what women did at the time. And certainly in those days, it was only ever women giving birth and becoming moms. There were no trans parents at all. And there were no same-sex couples that were documenting their journeys and talking about what it was like to be parents. So the world's a totally different place. It's a totally different place now than it was 23 years ago when I was having my first child. So one of the big things that I did that was different was I breastfed my eldest child. And we co-slept and I carried him around in a sling, and I just did things different. I didn't have a playpen. I had a stroller but rarely used it. Things were just different. And I actually don't think that I realized how different I was doing things until I think my eldest was about 4 or 5 months old. And we lived about 2 hours away from my parents at the time. So we had decided with my parents that we were going to meet somewhere halfway and have dinner one night. We were missing each other and my parents needed their grandbaby fix. Fair enough. So we got there and we were chatting in the parking lot, and my dad looked at me and he said, "Hey kiddo, how you doing?" And in a way that you can only do with your parents sometimes, I snuggled into my dad and I whined. And I said, "I'm great, I'm tired, but I'm good." And in an effort to protect me, because the part that I think I had forgotten at that point was that I was still his baby, and to this day I will always be his baby. In an effort to protect me, he said, "You know, I was listening to the radio the other day, and there's a doctor on there who was saying that by the time the babies are 4 or 5 months, they should be able to sleep through the night." And not realizing at the time that my dad was just trying to meet me where I was and have a conversation with me about the parenting choices I made, I became defensive and said, well, that's very different than anything I've read. So he said to me something that I actually wish he'd said frequently in high school, but for some reason never did. He said, I think you read too much. And to be fair, I think he was probably right. But at the time, I was deeply hurt. I thought I was doing everything in my power to make sure I researched everything I needed to know about being the best parent that I could possibly be. So for him to tell me that he thought I read too much made me feel like he thought I wasn't doing what I should be doing for my child. He just wanted to protect me, and he just wanted to be a part of the process. I went home and I spent a lot of time thinking about the conversation that we'd had. And I realized that I'd never thanked my parents. And so I made a point the next weekend of driving all the way up to their place and asking them to sit down and chat with me. And I made a point of saying to them that I was thankful for them parenting me the way that they had, for them loving me the way that they had, and that it was because of them and not in spite of them that I was parenting my children or child at the time the way that I was. And the world flipped. They started to understand, because I had failed to previously talk to them about it, they failed to understand that I wasn't making the decisions that I was making about how I was parenting because I thought they did it wrong, but because their confidence in me and my abilities to become a parent and take care of a child gave me the power to look things up for myself and follow my heart and parent from my gut. And that was huge. All of a sudden, we were able to have much better and more open conversations about how things are different, or at that time were different then than they had been when I was a baby. So sometimes it's important to meet your parents where they are and talk to them about it. But on top of that, what it encourages you to do is to spend some time thinking about what kind of a parent do you want to be, and where are you getting your information about what kind of a parent you want to be. Are you getting it from social media? Who on social media are you following to get a sense of how you want to parent? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't follow people on social media. There's some phenomenal individuals on social media who are more than experts in their fields about the different topics that they cover. So by all means, I think that that's a great resource for you. What about friends? Are you watching how your friends are parenting and taking the pieces that work for you and leaving the rest behind? One of the things that I generally encourage any expectant couple or just simply an expectant individual is to have a conversation either as a couple or with yourself about what kind of a parent you want to be and what kind of a parent you don't want to be. Because we don't necessarily want to be doing everything on the fly once our kids arrive. And sometimes some of it is like that, but are we going to be the kind of parent who lets our kids watch TV? Are we going to limit how often our kids watch TV? Are we going to limit how much sugar they have? Are we going to let them eat pretty much whatever they want? Do we feel like feeding from our body is the best and only way to feed our child? Or are we wanting to make sure that we find balance somewhere so that sometimes our child is feeding from our body and sometimes our child is feeding using other sources? Where's our child sleeping? And then we get into discipline. How are we parenting in terms of discipline? Our child says no, or are they losing the opportunity to have access to whatever it is that they were wanting? Or are we taking that away? Are we giving them the choices to make and then respecting their choices and following their lead? Are we telling them that sometimes we have to say yes to some things and no to others, and that they have to be okay with it, and that they can't always be part of the decision making? Are we parenting as a family and making decisions as a family, or are we doing it in a more structured function? And to be fair, it doesn't have to be all one or the other. Sometimes we'll have a list of things in our minds that have some fluidity to them. we can do this, or we can do this, or we can take this approach, or we can take that approach. It's really up to you to follow your heart. But if there's two of you in the parenting dynamic, you have to have those conversations before this child even arrives. Because maybe one of you was raised with corporal punishment and thought you were pretty good as a result of that, or someone else was raised with more passive parenting and they think they're pretty good because of it. If that's the dynamics that both of you come from, then there's going to be conflict between you. And you want to be able to present as a united front. You don't want one of you to always be the heavy and one of you to always be the nice guy. You want to be able to work together and parent together. So have those conversations, write things down, and keep revisiting it. Have it be a touch base that you have every 3 to 6 months, where this is how we've been doing it. This is what's working. These are the parts of it that I'm feeling like I'm a little bit challenged by. Could we talk about a different approach? What other approaches are there? There's so many books out there that are going to tell you how to parent. Everything from Baby Wise to the Baby Whisperer and all kinds of parenting books for your older child and things like that. They all have a structured path that you're supposed to follow. Very few of our kids read these books before they were born, so they don't know they're supposed to be following those patterns. But more than that, very few parents feel like everything in that book reflects how they feel they want to parent. So pick and choose the parts that work for you and leave the rest behind, and that's okay. You don't have to do it the same way everybody else is doing it. You're just supposed to do it the way that feels right for you. That leaves you in a position of being respectful and respected, because that's a big part. It can be difficult to feel respected if you're always saying yes and never saying no. You're always putting yourself out, even for the littlest things that aren't necessary. Then if you're not valuing your own time, then the people around you aren't going to value your time either. Why value your time if you don't? You're the most important person in your decision-making process. And when you look after you, it makes you an easier and better person to look after other people. So have those conversations, not just with your spouse or your partner, but with yourself and those people who are pivotal in your life, whether it's your parents, your siblings, your friends, your cousins, your colleagues, the people that you like and respect. Think about why you like and respect them. What is it about them that you like and respect? What can I teach my child to provide a path that maybe helps them be more like those people that mean the world to you? I don't know if this is just me rambling or if this is just me feeling overwhelmed by everything that's going on in the world and all the decisions we're not allowed to make these days. We're in the middle of another lockdown, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like other people are making decisions for me, and I'm struggling with that piece. And so I need to respect myself, and I need to honor what's important to me. But at the same time, I also need to respect the family that I have and the people that I'm with every day, because they're struggling too. And in these times, that can be the hardest part to see. Know that I'm thinking about you. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave a comment here on this YouTube channel in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Email me at babyreadylgbtq@gmail.com, or leave a comment in the contact page on my website, www.babyready.info. I hope you feel nothing but love today and always, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.